Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our bizarre and unusual world. Today I'm going to be covering a case that has been highly requested. Today we'll be talking about the Lizzie Borden case. So let's start with the who. Who exactly does this case circle around? And that is the Borden family. Although this case heavily focuses on Lizzie Borden specifically, who I may or may not be related to through the crazy twists and turns of family tree. So what about the when and where of this case? This case takes place in the summer of 1892 in Fall River, Massachusetts. The crime itself took place on August 4th, 1892. So what is this case all about? It's a very popular name, but maybe you don't know what exactly this case entails. So the Borden family consisted of Andrew Borden, his second wife Abby Borden, Andrew's two daughters Lizzie Borden and Emma Borden. Within their household they also had a maid named Maggie Sullivan living with them. And on the date of this crime, a man named John Morse was also visiting from out of town and staying in their guest bedroom. Now, he was Andrew Borden's first wife's brother, so basically Lizzie's uncle. The Borden family was considered to be very wealthy during this time, but they didn't really show it. Andrew Borden insisted that they live a very normal life with nothing too lavish, and while the girls kind of didn't like this, that's just how he wanted his house to run. His first wife did pass away, and then that is when he married his second wife, Abby Borden, and she would become the two girls' stepmother, but it would kind of seem like they did not have a good relationship with their stepmother. As I said, his two daughters, Lizzie and Emma, really didn't like how he spent his wealth. For example, Andrew Borden bought his new wife's sister a home, but refused to buy his daughters a home, which did not sit well with them, obviously. And at one point, after arguments and fights regarding these things, they actually stopped calling her mom or stepmom, and they just referred to his new wife as Mrs. Borden. Now, the two daughters were older for the time, you could say. Emma was 41 at the time of the crime and Lizzie was 32. Both of them were unmarried and still living in their father's home. So jumping to the day of the crime, August 4th, 1892, Lizzie Borden claims that she was out back in the barn organizing some different fishing supplies. She said when she came back to the house, she noted that the screen door was unlocked, and when she came inside, that is when she discovered her father's brutal murder. She found his body. It is suggested that he wasn't feeling well that day, so he went to lie down kind of like in the study, and that is where he was attacked. Because he was sleeping, it appeared that he did not put up much of a fight. So the investigation showed that he had been hit with the blunt end of what they assumed was maybe an axe about 11 times in his head. Although I'm not sure how they could really tell exactly how many times this guy was hit in the head, because the scene was so brutal, so gory, it's hard to make ends meet of anything. So the fact that they knew it was 11, I don't know what type of science that was, but his head was really, really messed up. This kind of led investigators to believe that this crime was a crime of passion and not opportunity. Now, supposedly during this time, the maid Maggie had gone upstairs to her room to take a nap, and she claimed she didn't hear anything until she heard Lizzie come in and start screaming, like, "Come downstairs, father is dead, someone has come in and killed him." So Maggie came downstairs, and that's where she found Lizzie in a clean blue dress and the body of Andrew. It was at that point that Lizzie suggested and like pretty much made her go like down the way across the street to a doctor's house that lived nearby. So Maggie did leave and came back with a neighbor. It was at that point that Lizzie suggested that she assumed, or she thought, that her stepmother was upstairs and maybe they should go and check on her during this craziness. So the pair did as Lizzie said, and that is unfortunately when they found the second body. Abby Borden was found face down in the guest room. Once again, it was a very brutal and gory scene. They estimate she had been hit in the head about 18 times. So Andrew and Abby Borden were both murdered brutally in their own home. So why would anyone want to kill them? Now, there are a few suspects within this case, but none are as popular as Lizzie Borden. I mean, most people refer to this case as the Lizzie Borden case, not the murder of Andrew and Abby Borden. No, they say it's the Lizzie Borden case. So she was obviously a prime suspect throughout all of this. There were a few things working against Lizzie. When she made her statements to the investigators, she was kind of all over the place, you could say, with her answers. When looking further into her whereabouts, they found that the barn attic that she had claimed to be in, there was a layer of dust on the floor and there were no footprints, so they didn't think she had actually been upstairs in that barn section. And the heat was so intense during that time, they don't think that she could have been up there that long like she claimed. Some people started to suggest that Lizzie actually had a very hostile relationship with both her father and her stepmother, and so the target kind of got pointed toward Lizzie. Now, her sister Emma was actually out of town during this crime, so she wasn't really on the police radar whatsoever. It was all focused on Lizzie Borden. Rumors obviously flew that Lizzie killed them to get the wealth, get the money, because it turns out her father left all of everything to her and her sister, although Lizzie claims that she had no idea there was any sort of will and she didn't know that her sister and her would end up with all of his money. Now, on August 9th, Lizzie was arrested. The judge pretty much said, yeah, she's probably guilty, so let's just take her to trial. The trial did not start until June 5th, 1893. So Lizzie spent like 10 months in jail waiting for this trial, and there was no evidence. It was just rumor and speculation. They had no evidence against Lizzie Borden. They had found like a broken off hatchet in the basement of the home that they thought maybe could have been the murder weapon, but there was no blood, no fingerprints, nothing that was able to connect it to the crime. So that was pretty much dismissed. So this trial was big news. It was such a brutal murder that everyone was talking about, this Lizzie Borden trial and everything. And the prosecutor, oddly enough, I don't really understand, decided to bring the skulls of Andrew and Abby Borden to the trial, and instead of just using them as evidence, he accidentally dropped them on the ground and they like rolled out on the table and the floor or whatever, and it caused quite the scene, and Lizzie actually fainted at the sight of her father and stepmother's bashed in skulls sitting there on the table. There was a few witnesses that testified during the trial. One was a family friend who claimed that Lizzie had been burning a blue dress the day after the crime took place, although Maggie the maid said that Lizzie had been wearing a clean blue dress, so it couldn't have been the same dress, is kind of the argument there. So that kind of led people to debate if Lizzie could have murdered her parents, hid the weapon, and switched dresses within the time period before the maid came downstairs or anybody else came home, which I guess is possible, although those dresses back in the day took forever to put on, so I don't know how realistic that is. Another witness during this trial was actually a local pharmacist. Now, this man claimed that Lizzie tried to buy a specific type of poison from him the day before the murders, but he said if she didn't have like a medical need for it, then he could not give it to her. That's very interesting information, although it was eventually dismissed within this trial. So obviously another big part to this case and this trial was the first interview that the investigators did with Lizzie Borden. She was acting very weird. Her answers didn't really make sense. She was talking in circles, and it kind of made her the prime suspect. Although all of that interview had to be thrown out because of two reasons. Lizzie did not have a lawyer present, and none of the investigators told her that she had the right to remain silent. So they threw out that whole interview, which was pretty much the only evidence they had going, was that she was acting weird after the murders, which could be from a lot of things. I mean, she walked in and saw her dad's smashed in body and her stepmother was murdered. It doesn't necessarily make her guilty, but if she was, they had no evidence going for them. They actually had 3 different judges decide that those statements that Lizzie had made could not be used in court during this trial. When all was said and done with this trial, Lizzie Borden was found not guilty, which is so surprising to me because it's such a popular case in name. I had assumed that she did it, of course, and she was convicted. But no, doing this research, they didn't really have any evidence for her. There was nothing necessarily saying that, yes, she for sure committed this crime. So what about the other suspects? If it wasn't Lizzie, who could have killed them? Another suspect was John Morse, the uncle that was staying with them. A recent book actually suggested him as a suspect, so odd timing. He was not seen during the timeline of these murders, and it ended up that his alibi didn't hold up whatsoever. Mrs. Borden's body was also found in the guest room where he had been staying. Andrew Borden and John did have a business arrangement together, but their business was not doing good, so a lot of people suggest that maybe John was jealous of the Borden riches. They still had wealth even though his business was failing. So was it something like that passion of crime that made him kill them? And did he use a meat cleaver instead of an axe because John was a butcher? So definitely interesting points, would make sense why he could have been another suspect, but obviously I guess they didn't have enough on him because he was never convicted of anything either. Another suspect for this case is Maggie the maid. Several people don't believe that she could have been upstairs, not even fully taking a nap, and not hear two brutal murders within this home. Like, she had to have heard something. So was she in on it, or was she really just in that dead of a sleep that she didn't hear two people being murdered? So another theory actually suggests that Lizzie and Maggie committed this crime together. I mean, think about it. They did kind of provide each other with alibis during this crime period. And perhaps, you know, if you help me do this, I'll give you a split of the money or something to that nature. Some people even suggest maybe they were in some sort of relationship. There's no evidence for that, but that's popular in a lot of fan theories and entertainment purposes with this case, if you will. Along with this, it suggests that the pair potentially murdered the two naked and then washed off the blood and then switched into a clean dress, and maybe that's how they were able to hide the evidence, or there was no bloody clothing or anything found, which is interesting. That's another one that's popular in entertainment. I think that there's been a couple different movies and shows and everything that depict Lizzie Borden killing her parents naked. But yeah, the two sisters, Lizzie Borden and Emma Borden, lived out their life. They moved to a much nicer house in a much nicer part of town than their father would have liked them to. And they just lived out their life. The two murder cases, the Borden murders, Abby Borden and Andrew Borden, their case is still unsolved. We don't know who killed them. Lots and lots of people do think that Lizzie had something to do with it, that it was her or her and Maggie, that she had something to do with it. So was it just a stranger off the street? What did this couple do to deserve such a brutal and unfortunate murder? So how is this case seen today? I've mentioned there's a lot of fan theories, and the case is very popular by name, the Lizzie Borden case. And their house, the Borden house, is actually a bed and breakfast now that you can go and stay at. They will give you the history of everything. I mean, there's pictures, like crime scene pictures in this house. Some of the furniture looks the same. It's really crazy. And then it's also extremely popular, like a paranormal hotspot. A lot of people do different ghost adventures and like paranormal investigations at this bed and breakfast, trying to either communicate with the deceased or even Lizzie Borden, etc. So it's kind of like a ghost hotspot, if you will. There are a lot of movies, TV shows, books, even fan fictions depicting what they think happened with the Lizzie Borden case and if she killed her parents or who was in on it. Lots of different fan theories, if you will. There's even a really creepy nursery rhyme that was written about this case that is just like, nursery rhymes are always so creepy. Why are they so creepy? We sing these to children, or children sing them? Like, ugh, maybe that's why I don't like when I hear like children singing. It just makes me think like the place is haunted. I do hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was highly requested. I loved learning about it. What do you guys think? Do you think that Lizzie was in on killing her parents? Do you think she wasn't a part of it and she just got the wrong target marked on her? Who do you guys think did it? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next episode.